So when we talk about the uninsured, I find that it's best understood if we put it in the context more broadly of how Americans get healthcare paid for. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw this pie chart. And you may have seen this before if you've seen some of our other videos. And this pie chart here is going to represent the U.S. population, which is somewhere north of around 300 million people. About half of Americans get health insurance through their employer. So you work for an auto body shop or a restaurant or an office, and they pay you salary, and they also buy you this benefit of health insurance. So we refer to that as employer-sponsored insurance. And this is very popular because if your employer buys you health insurance, the money they use to do that is considered tax-free. It's a big benefit, and that's why people have really gotten typically their insurance through their employer. About a third of people, I'm going to draw that like this, get their health insurance from the government. And that's sort of evenly divided between the two big programs. Medicare, which is a federal program that primarily gives health insurance to people over the age of 65, as well as Medicaid, which is a combination of both a federal and a state-funded program really designed to give health insurance to the poor and to children and some other special populations. After that, there's going to be a small sliver of people that buy their own health insurance from an employer or get it in some other ways. And that really leaves this part of the pie right here. And this part of the pie is really people who are uninsured. So they really don't have any risk pooling or risk sharing with a larger group of people. So if they get sick, they could be stuck with a huge bill that could wipe them out. They need to pay out of pocket for any medical expenses they get. Let's try and understand a little bit more about the uninsured now. So the first thing we're going to look at is, well, how many people are uninsured? Well, if you look at estimates, they range anywhere from 47 to about 60 million Americans. And one of the reasons those estimates vary is that it depends how you count them. Are they insured for brief periods of time a year, maybe uninsured for other parts of the year, or are they chronically uninsured? And in addition to that, one of the other hard things is that let's just make a little box here that represents people who are uninsured, and then make a larger box here of people who are insured. And it turns out that these groups people go back and forth between these two groups somewhat frequently. And that's for two reasons. The first is that people's employment status changes. In other words, if you're uninsured and you get a job, you'll join the ranks of the insured. And vice versa, if you lose your job, you may become uninsured. The second thing is that if you are on Medicaid, that's the federal and state partnership program that gives health insurance to the poor primarily, those programs are very complicated. The rules are really hard, and it turns out that people get kicked off and re-signed up for that program all the time. So if you're insured through Medicaid, a large number of people surprisingly actually go on to become uninsured for part of that year. And the third, and this is really an issue for many years, is that private insurance, if you sort of rang up a huge bill or developed a major medical problem, you could lose eligibility. So you could just lose your insurance if you became too expensive for them. So that could drive you from being insured to being uninsured. Well, I think the other thing that helps me understand the uninsured is now to talk a little bit more about the characteristics of this group right here. So now we're going to focus on this population of the 47 to 60 million uninsured and try to sort of get a sense of, well, what are they like? And let's draw a pie graph again. So if we look at this pie graph, we find that actually most people that are uninsured actually do have jobs. So they actually most people have at least one member of their family who has full-time employment. So these individuals work for companies or employers that have chosen not to offer health care benefits. And so although they are employed, they just don't get health care. Why would that be? Well, the key then is to understand, well, how much money do people who are uninsured make? And if we again make another pie chart like that, we'll find that although most of them are employed, about a third of people still make under the federal poverty limit. So for and I'm going to talk in figures of a family of four, they make less than $23,000 per year for a family of four. And about another third make between 1 and 2.5 times the federal poverty limit. So they make somewhere, I'm just sort of ballparking these figures, $23,000 to $60,000 per year for a family of four. And then this balance of the group here makes more than that. Now, you could look at these numbers and say, well, they're not completely unemployed. Why don't they just buy their own health insurance? Because it's such an important thing to have for their security. And to understand that means that we're going to just look at a few figures here. How much does health insurance cost? Well, for an individual, for one person, it's estimated that an average yearly health insurance premium is about $6,000. And that's an estimate from 2013. And for a family of four, a health insurance premium is about $18,000. Now compare these numbers to how much a family's total income might be over here. So whether it's 23,000 for a family of four, or even up to 60,000 if you're in this group right here. Don't forget that this is before tax income. So after taxes, many of these people may have to pay Social Security tax. Many of them still pay at least a portion of income taxes to the federal government. There may be state taxes, sales taxes. And so what's left, if you use that to buy health insurance for this $18,000 price, remember, they're not getting it through their employer, so they don't get any tax break on that. That is felt to just be too much for these families, and so they really can't afford health insurance at all. And this is one of the key reasons why the number of Americans is so high that's uninsured. Because this also goes back to the fact that most people are expected to get their insurance through their employer. And when you just don't generate a lot of income and your employer chooses not to get it for you, the costs are just too high, and most people make the choice not to purchase it or are incapable of purchasing it. I want to talk now about why being uninsured represents such a major burden for people. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this because I think we get the concept of why insurance is so expensive for families and then why they may choose not to purchase insurance. I'm going to just take this out and erase this area here to sort of clean up our board. What I'm going to talk about now is, well, what's the big deal then about just paying out of pocket? So remember, if we have a family, let's say there's two parents and two children, and they end up having to get medical care. Suppose one of the children gets sick, needs to be hospitalized maybe for an asthma attack or something like that, and so they're going to have to pay out of pocket directly for that care. It turns out that most other Americans, when they pay for their care, remember, they actually have an insurance company that's between them and their hospital. And this insurance company does something very important. They negotiate a price. Think about it this way. If you go to a car dealership, what price do they quote you? They're going to quote you the sticker price. You negotiate that price. Similarly, a hospital charges extraordinarily large amounts of money for common things. A pill of Tylenol might cost several dollars. An IV bag might be hundreds of dollars. Insurance companies bargain that down so that a family who has an insurance plan doesn't pay that sticker price. On the other hand, without that insurance company making those bargains for you, you are forced to pay that very high sticker price for medical care. So this is a big problem for people that are uninsured. Not only do they have the first issue, which is obviously number one, generally their incomes are low, so they just don't have a lot of savings built up. But in addition to that, the other whammy they get is that their prices are unbelievably high for what they are exposed to. So they may have short hospitalizations that could quickly and rapidly add up to tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that can be ruinous to them and their family's finances. So there's one reason why getting health insurance and having the insurance company negotiate on your behalf is such an important benefit for families that do have insurance, and protects you from those very high healthcare costs. In future videos, we'll talk a little bit about some of the ideas that have been put forward to try and reduce the number of uninsured in a variety of ways.